Coming up on this episode of Common Denominator.
I had a doctor after I arrived in Paris. My eyes were shut, and I had a doctor tell my mother, walked in my room, and he's like, "Ma'am, like, if he's not doing better by tonight, he'll be dead tomorrow morning. Have a good one." My mom starts crying, and I'm like, "Mom, you know what? He does not get to say what I do with my life."
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, where we shine a light on people striving to make the world a better place. Today, an athlete who rollerbladed across the U.S. to raise money to fight a devastating disease. Louis Chaix inline skated from Venice Beach to Times Square in 45 days, covering over 2,000 miles and setting a world record. And he did it all for a very worthy cause. Louis just finished sharing his incredible story with me, and the thing that really stood out to me is being only 25 years old, the level of maturity that he has, and his hard work and grit is really something special. So go ahead and check out the episode. Hey, Louis, welcome to Common Denominator.
I appreciate you for having me. Thank you so much.
So I know just a couple days ago, we just came on the 1-year anniversary of you rollerblading across the United States. And we're gonna get into that soon, and the reason why you decided to take that on. But I want to go back to your story when you were 6 years old, and you had a very scary moment.
So, when we say that your life can change overnight, we often think that it only happens to other people, that we're immune from that and that would never happen to us. Well, that's a big lie. I was 6 years old, went to school just like another regular day. And throughout the day, everybody was asking me, "You look tired. Are you okay? You seem tired. Like, what's wrong?" And I was feeling very tired, but I didn't really know. It was just a weird vibe. Like, everybody kept checking on me, and I wasn't sure why. So I get home and I'm watching TV with my mom, and I start being super itchy. I can't stop itching myself. My mom's a nurse. She kind of starts freaking out. And she knew something was up because that night she asked me if I wanted to go to hockey practice. And I said, "Mom, I would love to, but I don't think I can. I don't feel good." And she knew something was up because I would never miss a hockey practice. And I went to the ER. They didn't find anything. They sent me home. And I woke up the next day. My body was covered in blisters head to toes. I'm immediately hospitalized. Nobody knows what's happening. And then my skin starts peeling off. So I ended up being burnt to the second degree on over 80% of my body surface, while my organs were burning, my lungs, my eyes. I was supposed to be blind. And my health was deteriorating so fast. 2 or 3 weeks after being hospitalized, I was airlifted to the burn unit in Paris because I was dying. And then I was diagnosed with the highest form of Stevens-Johnson syndrome, which is called toxic epidermal necrolysis. It's an extremely rare skin condition that's usually caused by an allergic reaction to medication. Unfortunately, in my case, they never found out what caused it because the testing was done too late. But yeah, I was burning inside out, and I was told I was going to die. I had a near-death experience. But I believed that there was more to my life than just dying on my hospital bed. I had big things to accomplish, and I promised myself and my family that one day I'd be playing ice hockey in North America. Ultimately, when I was 14 years old, I was able to do that and move to Canada on my own to chase my dreams.
I think 6 years old. You're sitting in the hospital. What's going on in your mind? I mean, were you just was it shock or?
Being so young was kind of a blessing, especially with that disease, because you're more likely to survive if you get it when you're young. But for me, it was the innocence of a 6-year-old. You know what death is, but you don't necessarily understand it. To me, it was just a concept like, oh, I may be dying right now. Like, what does that mean? And so I had a doctor after I arrived in Paris. My eyes were shut, and I had a doctor tell my mother, walked in my room, and he's like, "Ma'am, like, if he's not doing better by tonight, he'll be dead tomorrow morning. Have a good one." My mom starts crying, and I'm like, "Mom, you know what? He does not get to say what I do with my life. I'm going to be okay. And one day, I promise you, I'll be playing in North America. I'll be playing hockey." And the blessing was that I had this mindset of, what do I want to do with my life? instead of being focused on what was happening to me and all this negative stuff, I was aware of it, I was understanding of it, but I wasn't letting that define my life and my future. So that allowed me to really just take it one day at a time and focus on where I was headed instead of where I was at. And that was a blessing. I had a near death experience that day. And, when your body gives up on you, it sounds very cliche, but the only thing keeping you alive is your mind. And for me, I was just feeling exhausted. I was so tired of fighting. And I kind of told myself, hey, I'm just going to relax for a second. And as soon as I did that, I felt my body feeling so heavy. And I almost felt like myself was getting dragged out of my own body, physical body. And then I was going up in the sky. And I remember just looking up in the clouds. It's pink sky, beautiful. I can see my face in the clouds up until I'm going up until I become my own face. And I'm just looking down at the world and ask myself two questions. Why is everybody so stressed and running around? And also, why are they so sad that I'm up here? And in the blink of an eye, it's like I fell back down. And I remember being awake, like almost like waking up. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be all right.
I think it's amazing. A few times on the show, we've had guests that have talked about near-death experience. And I think that, for people that don't have a belief in something else or something greater than self, here you are, firsthand experience, explaining that. How do you explain it? And everybody says things very similar to that. They're kind of looking down at their body and looking down at everybody else, same exact way. And you experienced that.
Yeah.
You had this situation, and I think that if we can, be in life, kind of see things like a conscious observer, as you saw it that exact moment, right? Like, why is everybody so stressed and why is this happening? And you have a different vantage point of how you look at life. I think you have an overwhelming sense of gratitude and love and appreciation.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, it was like, man, I made it through this for a reason. And so ultimately, fast forward 16 years later, I'm in a great spot in my life, transferred schools for hockey. I'm at Missouri State. I'm really happy, but I'm dealing with a ton of survivor's guilt. And I have a really hard time looking at myself in the mirror, knowing that I get to live my life, chase my dreams, travel the world, while people are dealing with the same disease I had. They're in a hospital bed. They don't have answers. Or even just somebody who never had health issues, but they're living their life and going through the motions and they don't live up to their full potential. I needed to get involved and do something. And so ultimately, I was like, what can I do to put light on something that's extremely important and that's greater than myself? And so my whole journey came together. But you have to be thankful to be alive. A lot of people get caught up, they think it only happens to others. They think that it's just okay to waste your time, waste your life, and not chase your opportunities and not give the best of yourself every day. But the second you start doing that, in my opinion, is the second you start dying. And I promised myself that, when you're 6 years old on your deathbed and you sit there and you're like, man, I wish I played with my dog more. I wish I enjoyed hockey practice a little more. I wish I told my family I loved them more. It's a very shitty feeling. And I promised myself that never again I would feel like that. So since then, I've lived my life like every day was my last day. And I can confidently say that if I was to go tomorrow, not that I want to, but if I was to go tomorrow, I could honestly sit here and be like, hey, I've lived and I've done everything I've always wanted. I have no regrets at all.
If you don't mind, I was just thinking, if you don't mind, how old are you now?
I'm 25.
Right. So think about that. I meet 25-year-olds all the time, and I feel like I'm talking to someone who's like over 70 right now. Because honestly, because in a very positive way. Because you're an old soul. It's just the way it is. And now you have your whole life in front of you. And congratulations. I know you just signed to play ice hockey in France.
Thank you.
I think today, right? It was today.
Yeah. So it's all announced today. It's all coming together today. So it's been a great day so far. Lots of support.
So in other words, what I'm hearing is the more the more gratitude, the more love, and the more perspective. Like if we can have, you're very fortunate in that way that you have the right perspective at 25 years old. You have that old soul,
Yeah.
and I've seen it. Sometimes unfortunately it happens on people's deathbed, right? So you were able to experience that deathbed experience, but yet actually live in life, right? Because sometimes at the end, I know it's with my grandfather and different people that I've seen, their whole perspective is different. So if we can shift our perspective while we're healthy and happy here in this world, that would be tremendous. And I'm a big believer in what is your why. For you,
Oh my God.
right? For you were 6 years old and you're like, I want to play hockey, right?
Mhm.
That's what I'm gonna do. And whatever that happens to be for each person, that why will always trump fear.
100%.
Right?
And on the other side of fear, there's like life. Like I always say this, there's the things that we know we can do, there's the things we'd like to do, and then there's what we think it's our limit, right? And as soon as you get past that and you break the belief of fear that's overpowered your mind, as soon as you get through that, you just realize that this whole time you've been holding yourself back, you've been lying to yourself. I experienced it firsthand on my journey when I thought I was done skating, and then I just kept going one more step and then one more step, and then I'm 100 miles further than I was back there, and you're like, well, and I thought I was done. Just like, oh well, this guy thought I was done on my hospital bed. Look at me now, and the things I get to experience every day just because I believed it was possible. We all have dreams, and we all think like, oh, this, I'd love to do that, or I like the idea of that, but your dreams are your own, and they're here for a reason. And if you don't act on them, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to do it for you. Had I waited for somebody to make me feel better in my hospital bed, I wouldn't be here today. Had I waited for somebody else to skate across America for this disease, nobody would have done it. It's up to us. And a lot of people don't realize that we have so much more control than we tend to think. And now my mission is to just show people that you shouldn't wait to get through something traumatic or get on your hospital bed in order to realize that life is precious. That's what I try to convey as a message every day. Is like, hey, I went through this and I did that, but I hope that you don't wait to go through what I have or something similar in order to start living.
The more you can, at your age, because again, you're 25, that you can give this message to people to counterbalance the entitlement and the mindset and the negative mindset that exists in the youth nowadays, you'll be a role model for that. So keep doing that. Super
Thank
important.
you.
But I wanna go to this journey because I'm trying to internalize exactly what's going on. So you're rollerblading with your friend and you want to do something greater, right? You have this idea. Tell us about how this idea to rollerblade through the U.S. Happened.
Yeah. So when I got to Missouri State, my buddies, kind of like the Mighty Ducks, would go skate around campus. And I didn't even have a pair of skates. And my buddy Alex just gave me a pair, and then I would go every day with them. And then it kind of became part of my routine. I would skate like 3 to 5 miles a day for fun with my buddies, a speaker, like just have some fun. And one day we're on our daily ride with my buddy Garrett, my roommate at the time. And we're on the sorority row. And I'm like, dude, it would be absolutely incredible to skate across America. It'd be wild. And he looks at me, he's like, dude, it'd be cool, but you can't do that. And I didn't say anything. I get home and I'm in the shower, I'm washing my hair, and I'm like, I can't get this thought out of my mind. Like something's telling me I have to do this, but I am not the type of person that was gonna do it just to do it. Like, oh, look at me, I'm doing this journey, blah blah blah. Like that's just not who I am, and I didn't want to be either. And then I realized that as human beings, we tend to discredit the things that we go through. We discredit the things that we go through that we accomplish because it's our story, it's all we know, it's our norm. For me, surviving this disease is all I know. It's part of my story. It's to me, it's whatever. But then I was like, no, like you survived a really rare disease and you should get involved. I mean, the year I had the disease, only 3 people out of 68 million in France were diagnosed with it. And so I was like, you need to get involved. You need to give hope to people that things can get better. And also you need to show everybody else that when you have an idea and you're honest with the amount of work that you put in and you show up every single day. I mean, my shirt says consistency wins. It's true. Finding the purpose and the impact of little actions that you can repeatedly do over and over and over again will ultimately lead you to being extremely successful. And I was like, okay, you're onto something. I tried to reach out to the Steven Johnson Syndrome Foundation for 3 weeks. I was calling them every day. Nobody was answering. And it was like, you know what? Maybe it's just not the time for you to do it. Maybe it's just not aligning correctly. And I'm like, I'm going to call them one more time. If they don't answer, then I'm just not meant to do it right now. So I'm calling, it's beeping, it's beeping, it's beeping. And then somebody picks up the phone and I'm like, oh my God, this is the first time in 16 years that I speak to somebody involved in that disease, in that world, that kind of understands what I've been through. And I'm like, hey, my name is Louis Chaix. I want to skate across America to raise funds and awareness for the disease. How do I go about that? They immediately put me in touch with Dr. Phillips at Vanderbilt University, the greatest researcher in the field. And then from there, I was off. I had no idea how to sell myself. I had no idea in marketing, business, I'm just a college student with an idea. And so invite on a podcast my buddies. And then I am the type of person, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I was at a point where I wasn't necessarily ready to hear people tell me I was crazy. I wanted people to validate that idea, but I wasn't necessarily ready. But again, there's never a right time to get started. You just have to go for it. And at the end of the interview, my buddy's like, Louis, you're preparing something pretty well. Would you like to share about it? And in that moment, I was able to put it out in the world. And now I'm accountable and I have to take action on it because I really want to. And now that it's out in the world, I'm like, okay, well, you said you would, so you're going to do it. Fast forward 2 years later, June 1st, 2022, and I'm off to start. Along the way, I got to meet a producer from LA, Ryan Delaney, who said that he would work with me and create a documentary for it that we're going to take to movie festivals, theaters, and then streaming platforms. So we're just wrapping up filming right now. And I'm just excited to be able to share this journey with the world because a lot goes into skating across the country, logistically, out there on the road, training. It's just a whole, and not everybody understands, you know.
So let's unwrap that a little bit because
yes.
So where are you? You're starting from California. Is that where you where
Venice Beach Skate Park?
So Venice. So all of a sudden, I guess you've been training for a number of months, mentally, physically, right? I assume that's kind of what's going on, right?
The training was incredible. I mean, I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning and go to bed at 2 a.m. because there's only so many hours in the day. 4:30 a.m. I would lift for 2.5 hours until 8 a.m. Then I would go to class 8 to 12. Then I would be doing some work 12 to 6 p.m. 7 to 9 p.m. I would be playing hockey. And then 9:30 till 1:30 a.m. I would be doing cardio, 2-hour swim, 2-hour bike, 2-hour run. And then if I had 30 minutes to spare, I would do homework. And then you just wake up and do it again. And I remember after the first week of training, I sat down with myself. I'm like, is this what it's going to be like? And I was like, yeah, that's what it takes. And that's what it's going to take. And in order to succeed, sometimes you need to do certain things to the point where it's unhealthy. Like you can't just sit back. I had to be fully bought in and all in. And especially in college, nobody understood. They're like, why don't you go out? Why don't you relax? Why don't you just skip today and just come hang out? I'm like, no, that's just not how it works. You know, I have big goals, I have big dreams, and I have to separate myself and create that distance because to do uncommon things, you have to do uncommon things every day.
Very mature. By the way, very mature hearing that from you. Because to realize that, because I was going to ask you if you have other friends your age that understand you. I was going to ask you that, right? I was going to ask you that.
My friends have always been older than me. I have had teammates and friends I'm really close with. My really close friends have always been older than me, at least 5 years. Yeah.
Right. Prices to pay.
And it's been difficult because especially with the drinking culture in the United States versus Europe. The way a college student, 18 to 25-year-olds in the U.S. operates with drinking is how people are at when they're 14, 15, 16 in France.
That's right.
So I get into this college world where I'm also very grateful and thankful for the opportunity to even attend a school in the United States and play hockey. But then it's like these girls are drinking 6 days a week. They're doing drugs. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
Like, you pay how much to go to school to do that every day? I'm like, I'm trying to build myself. I'm trying to build my future. Like I'm going to be playing hockey for a very long time, but when hockey ends, I'm not a hockey player anymore. Then what? Same thing with my journey. When I finished, my first thought at the finish line wasn't like, let's go, I made it. It was like, holy shit, what do I do now? And it was terrifying.
And it's funny because I remember hearing that from Michael Phelps also. He would say, because what you do is, right, we're supposed to have holistic balance. But sometimes if you want to, and we don't talk a lot about that, if you want to get on the bell curve, you want to reach certain goals, you're sacrificing, and it becomes, I guess, your dopamine or your balance. It goes off. So if you don't have a way to come down, right, you might go into a pretty dark place or might be really, really tough.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I was aware of that depression. So I really paid close attention to that. I went through a really hard time after my journey. Like, you're away from real life for so long. In the matter of a week of being on top of the world, finishing a world record journey, I went to losing all my financial aid in school, learning that I actually had a full year left when I was supposed to graduate in May. Now it's August and they're telling me you have a full year left. My hockey coach that recruited me is now telling me that he doesn't have room for me because he took players that quit on the team back. I can't afford my apartment and I'm losing my visa to be in the U.S. legally.
Right.
In the matter of less than a week after completing my journey.
Right. But I want to talk about that for a second because there's always a price to pay. In other words, you wanted to do this, and that is the way the universe works. It's just you're going to sacrifice all these things, sacrifice your friends, and do all these things. And I think it was tremendous. How many weeks were you training up to the?
Quickly, I agree with what you said, but I think when you're trying to build something like this, you can never see it as sacrifices.
Right.
I see that as investments. People always get lost in I sacrifice all these things. And then do you really want to do it then?
Right.
I'm like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm not going to die when I'm 30. I can party with my friends when I'm older. I can, it's fine. And like you said, I definitely agree. It's a great perspective to have. It was something that had to happen in order for me to make my journey come true. All these things got up to me, but hey, it is what it is. And I wouldn't change it for a thing.
And I love that you said that.
So for my training, I was basically, I had the idea September 16th, 2020. I trained for hockey all through 2021. And then I really dialed in my training purposely for the journey and the journey only January 31st, 2022. And I started June 1st, 2022. So because endurance, I've never been an endurance athlete before. And endurance training is completely different to hockey training. And I was still in season when I started. So I had to delay the start of my training for my journey as much as I could. So it wouldn't affect me on the ice, but also would give me enough time to prepare. And I was training 6 to 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. It was my life. That's all I did. I had no social life. I had, but it was fine. People, when they think about athletes, they think about training. They think about the gym and they think about being, whatever. But there's so much more that goes into it. I had to train my mind. I had to visualize everything. I write my goals everywhere. Write them on my bathroom mirror. I write them on my whiteboard. I write them on my training shoes right now. I will play the best professional hockey season in my life, 2023, 2024. I write them everywhere because you can't escape them. You can escape a thought. The thought comes in and out and you can just put it aside. But when it's in your face, not only you can escape them, but even when I go in the bathroom, brush my teeth, even if I'm not reading what's out there, my eyes see that. And I know what it means and what it entails. And then it was never about, am I going to be able to skate across America? It was more about, how am I going to do it? I never once thought, oh man, this is too much. I'm not going to make it. It was more so like, oh, I'm excited to see how I do it.
So you went from Venice all the way to Times Square.
Times Square, New York City.
And how long did that take?
How long did that take? 45 days, 10 hours, 44 minutes, and 10 seconds.
Wow. Were there any crazy things that happened along the way?
Yeah, so many. Like I said, I trained so hard and I prepared as hard as I could, just to find out the first day on the road that I had no idea what I was getting myself into, because every day is so different. Um, I got hit by a car in Indianapolis. I was all right, I guess. Got up and I had to keep going. It was a four-way intersection, had the green light, and the guy is waiting to take a right on red. And he's like, "Go, go, you got it." Rolled his window down. He's like, "Let's go, let's go." I'm like, "Okay," but I had this weird feeling that's, I don't know, something was gonna happen. And sure enough, as soon as I get in front of his car, he started driving. So I jumped up and I bounced off the hood of his car and fell on the ground. And I get up, I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he just started screaming at me in Spanish. And I'm like, I can just lay there and call the cops and the ambulance. Like I can't. Otherwise, my journey's over. Like it seems I'm okay, but like I can't just stop there. So I got up and I was like, "Please go." And had 17 miles to go until my next checkpoint. On my way to my checkpoint, I was threatened to get shot because I was skating through a really rough neighborhood. And they're like, "Get out of here. You got nothing to do here before we shoot you." I was like, "Okay." We went through a native reserve in Arizona, and one of my crew members almost got killed by a guy with an axe. The guy almost hit him and then pulled over in front of my buddy and came out the car with an axe, broke all his windows, broke his car, and then held the axe to his neck and insulted him and was like, "Do you want to die? Because I will kill you." And my buddy's like, "This, please don't kill me." And then I'm skating. I recognize the car that did that because they try to hit me off the road. The cops show up and they're like, "Yeah, it happens all the time." And then they left. I got chased by 12 coyotes on Route 66 at night. I got chased by guard dogs. I ran into a black bear in the middle of the night in Pennsylvania. I had to skate over a bridge in Illinois that was under construction. And I was skating on a metal sheet this wide. And on each side of that metal sheet was a drop in the Mississippi River.
Wow.
But at some point I had to remove myself from the danger because you get paralyzed. Like I'm on the side of the highway. Sometimes there's no shoulder, so I'm actually on the highway. And I had to come up with this thinking of like, hey, I was really like just thinking about what I was doing. And I'm like, you know what? The great thing is, if you do get hit by a semi or a car, the great thing is it's coming from behind and you won't see it happen. And then I was like, oh man, that's right. Let's go. And I just stopped being scared. Not in a way that I was being dumb and how like I was acting and not being safe, but I had to accept that I could die doing this. And I also had to accept that if that's how I go, then so be it. People were always telling me, "Do you have a weapon to protect yourself or this or that?" I'm like, no, because having one implies that I'm going to have to use it. And I don't want that. I don't want to take somebody's life. If they want to take me down, like, so be it. I'm skating across America for a great purpose, a great reason. If somebody wants to take my life, then, I'll put up a fight. Like, that's so be it. Like I was very aligned with what I was doing and I was conscious of the danger, but I wasn't holding on to that. I was more so focused on where I was headed and why I was doing it. So having a why is everything.
I see that that's a common theme within you, and it's truly amazing. Are you just in general? Are you completely healed from this rare disease, or do you still live in fear that it may come back?
So I refuse to live in fear. That's something I've grown to do. Not everybody's able to do that, and I understand it. It takes a lot of time, but my issue is that we never found out what caused it. So it could be medication, it could be genetics, because the way your genes are set up, you're more prone to develop this condition from certain intake of certain medicine or something. In my case, they never found out what caused it. So to this day, I don't take any medication. I just take Tylenol, which is pretty inconvenient when you're a hockey player. We get hurt quite a bit. But I was like, it's hard, it's scary, like the only things I have left are the scars on my face. Sometimes you can see them more than others. I really am proud of these things. I earned them. But I see a lot of I've met a lot of survivors, thanks to my journey, and to see what they deal with and see how I live my life. I can't complain. I have an extremely sensitive skin to the sun. Like, I cannot spend 10 minutes outside without sunscreen when it's the summertime. I will burn automatically. Sometimes I'll get little flare-ups, but nothing crazy. Like, it happens once a year. But I see people, like, they're missing a limb, their eyelashes are growing in their eyes, they're blind. I can't complain. And that was a big thing. Like, when I got to speak at the annual worldwide conference for the disease in 2021, sorry. And they were like, the survivor said, Louis, seeing that you've been through what I've been through, and being a college athlete and setting yourself up for this journey gives me hope that one day I'll be able to run again. Because right now, when I put my socks and my shoes on and I try to go run, my skin peels off under my feet and I can't do it. But seeing that you can do that and you're a survivor just like me gives me hope that things will get better for me. And this is what makes me feel alive. Like, this is the purpose of living.
What is the number one thing that you're most grateful for today?
Man, if I could, that's a hard question. Well, first of all, being alive, that's a main thing. And my family. But aside from that, I would say it's having that ability to turn hardship into a positive outcome so that I can better serve others around me. What makes me feel alive is to be able to show the way to people and give them hope and just be relatable. Like, I'm no different than anybody else. I'm just some college guy that had an idea and I put in the work, and I've shown over the years that hard work and being committed to something and having the belief. I'm thankful for the fact that I can have the belief of going after big things and having the understanding of what it takes to make it this far. And I'm still figuring it out, because once you accomplish something like this, what's next? You try to figure out what else you can do, because is it ever going to be enough? And yeah, I think it's just having the ability to bounce back, and just, if one door closes for me, it just gives me the opportunity to bust 10 doors open. And now that's what I want to show people, that what happens to you doesn't define you. What defines you really is how you overcome and get through it. So I don't know if it's something that's taught or if it's something I've had in me or I've developed over the years, but I'm just thankful it's there, because it allows me to live a purposeful life.
I agree with that. As far as always having purpose and meaning, that's your key north. So that's really appreciated. And what's something about you that people don't know?
I often struggle with self-confidence. People think that I have it all figured out, that I'm this very energetic guy. Like, yeah, I am, but I have to deal with self-doubt too. I have to ask myself, hey man, like, are you really good enough? Or like, sometimes we get in our heads, because I've realized over the years that we're afraid of success. People are afraid of success because they're like, man, maybe it's just for somebody else. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe, but why? Why isn't it? If somebody did it, why can't you? Yeah, you're a human being just as much, and your circumstances are going to be your circumstances as long as you allow them to be. And I get lost in that sense sometimes, where I'm like, oh, like, why am I even doubting myself right now? Like, hello, it's just a human thing, and everybody goes through it. No matter who you are, at some point you deal with fear and you deal with self-doubt, but what you decide to make out of it is truly going to define your outcome. And what I learned on my journey was like, sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, finish your point, because I was just thinking about this statement that I heard, which really works for me. To your point, everybody does go through self-doubt. And recently I heard a great line, which is such a practical tool. It's outwork your self-doubt.
Oh my God,
You
100%, because
right?
hard work brings me confidence. When I go to bed and I know that today I
Yeah.
did everything I could to get 1% better, or just know that I left it all out there, then I go to bed. I'm like, man, anxiety is created by the things you don't do.
That's exactly
You
right.
people are like, I'm anxious, I'm dealing with anxiety. Yeah, but why is that? If you prepare for an exam, you're not stressed before the exam. If I prepare really well before a hockey game, I'm not going to be stressed because I know that, hey, man, like I did everything I could. For my journey, same thing. I was so at peace when I started. I wasn't freaking out. I wasn't like, oh, what am I setting myself up to do? I was like, if it all fails, I did everything I could. So I can head into this confidently knowing that, hey, I am prepared. I'm going to make it.
And I want to really thank you, Louis, for your story. I want to wish you a long life of health and happiness. You have
Yeah.
a great potential for your age and meaning and purpose. Really, it's been great, and stay strong, and keep inspiring. Thank you. And how
Thank you
could,
so much.
if people want to learn more about you or even help fund your documentary, how can they go ahead and do that?
So, well, before we get into that, I want to thank you guys. It takes special people to accomplish special things. And often people don't realize that me sharing more about this journey and my story actually helps me. It helps me process it all and helps me understand why I did this, where I'm headed, and kind of process it all, because you're so caught up in it that it's sometimes hard to comprehend what you did. When you travel this far, usually you are on an airplane, in a car, in a train, but when you're on your 2 feet, it doesn't really make sense. So thank you guys so much. But if people want to follow along, everything that I do and I share is on Instagram at Louis Chaix. It's LOUISCHAIX. And if you click in my bio, there's a bunch of links. There's a link you'll see that will show you the trailer of the documentary. There's also a link that will take you to the fundraiser for the disease and the cause at Vanderbilt University. And finally, we are creating a documentary to share the journey. What's really cool about that is that a percentage of the profits will be forever donated to the cause once it comes out. And we're currently looking for investors and sponsors, or people that just want to donate and be a part of the journey. So you can go on there. There's a link to that as well. Yeah, we just wrapped up filming, and it's probably going to be another year, depending on the funding. Depending on the funding and the availability of the editors and the sound people and everything. We'll be able to get that started. But yeah, just excited to share the journey with the world, and anything's possible.
Well, thank you so much, Louis. It's really been great, and stay
Thank you
strong.
so much.
Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Louis. Next week, I'll speak with Jalal Abumwais. Jalal is better known as the king of Miami real estate. He and I will discuss why real estate continues to be the best way to make money, and he'll share his expert insight on flipping homes, plus his fascinating backstory, which includes homelessness and how that has shaped his gratitude and kindness. Please subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode, and follow me on social media at Popack. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.